summations or arguments of counsel with regard to this case. I remind you again that what the attorneys tell you is not evidence in this case. You've heard the evidence. It's their interpretation, their understanding of the evidence, what you remember from the evidence. But please pay close attention to the attorneys because this is the only chance they'll have to talk to you to sum up their case. All right, Mr. Brackett, you may begin.
Let's get something straight right from the beginning, because there appears to be some confusion based on comments made by my counsel on the other side there, Mr. Wise, in his opening statement, about what exactly brings us to this courtroom today. And we need to clear that up, because until we have a clear understanding of what it is we're doing here, you won't be able to do your job. So, what are we doing here? I did not indict Will Lewis for sexually assaulting. I did not indict him for rape. Indictment doesn't say anything about that. I did not indict him for cheating on his wife or committing adultery, both of which he did. But that is not why Will Lewis is sitting over there today. Mr. Lewis is seated over here at this table, defense table, under indictment and charged with these indictments because Mr. Lewis is a corrupt, self-serving, selfish, manipulative man who assumed the office of sheriff not because he really wanted to help anybody other than himself. He doesn't care about anybody else. He didn't care about Savannah, trying to help her, move her along in her life and do something good so that 4 years from now you can do something. Will Lewis had designs on Savannah neighbors from the word go. The minute he talked to her about coming to work for him at the sheriff's office, in his mind, he was already in bed with her. That is a fact. But even that, by itself, isn't necessarily a crime. Just because he was attracted to her, just because he wanted to sleep with her, that's not a crime. The crime is Will Lewis using his office to make that happen. Taking the resources that the public gives him, the citizens of Greenville, send in their tax dollars, they go to the county takes $45 to $47 million and gives it to this man for the purpose of keeping Greenville safe, not for the purpose of helping Will Lewis get in Savannah neighbors' pants. That is why he's been indicted, is because that's exactly what he did. So if there's any speculation about what I'm trying to accomplish here, or Mr. Wise gets up and starts talking about sexual assaults, and this is a moral failing, but you can't convict a man because of a moral failing. Well, I'll concede it's a moral failing, but it's also misconduct in office because he's the sheriff. And he used the sheriff's office and his authority as sheriff and the money and resources given to him as sheriff to accomplish what he was trying to do. And that's just the plain fact of it. Now, I've got a little PowerPoint here. I'm going to take a few minutes and go back through the evidence, and I hope you'll indulge me. We've been here all week. You've heard a lot of this. There's some stuff you haven't heard, though, and I want you to hear it. And I want to go back through it because we're able to present it, but you're not really able to hear our take on it until now. This is my opportunity to sum up what all this evidence means. So what I'm going to do now is take a few minutes and go through, and I just kind of do it in chronological order, and I try to give myself little bullet points because there's a lot of stuff and I might forget something. So I have little notes up here, and we go through witness by witness and try to refresh your memory on exactly what it is that we've presented to prove our case. The first people you heard from were Nora Sullivan and Jackie Cooper. And why did we put them on? Well, Nora Sullivan does payroll for the sheriff's office. And what did she tell you? She said Savannah Neighbors was hired into a brand new position. Now, he's tried to make that appear to be some innocent thing. Well, yes, I'm trying to do things different, and I'm trying to be the sheriff. And I'm sure there was some of that. But he hired a 22-year-old girl with no law enforcement experience and paid her $62,000. And as we called deputy after deputy, officer after officer, when they took the stand, and we asked Nora Sullivan the same thing, we asked them what they made so that you guys could have some context. What does $62,000 mean? You don't know. I mean, I don't know what an executive at Microsoft makes. I have no idea. So I need somebody to tell me, what is a reasonable salary for that? Where do these people fit in the grand scheme of things? So I'm going to be hitting on that point as I go through. But Savannah, she was so good. She's making $62,000, which means nothing at first until you find out that that's what some captains and lieutenants with 20 to 30 years of experience riding around in a car, getting beat up in fights, dealing with people we wouldn't want to deal with. That's what they get paid when she got hired. There are people that had been there 20 years making less than her, driving around in cars with 200,000 miles on them. But Savannah gets a brand new 2017 Ford Explorer. And again, you're thinking, why do they keep asking about this car? Is that a big deal? Yeah, it's a big deal in law enforcement. That's their office. It's a point of pride. You got guys riding around in old clunker cars. She strolls in and gets a brand new car and a parking spot next to the sheriff. 22 years old. No law enforcement experience. She's indispensable. Jackie, by contrast, this is a woman, you saw her, 27 years. Jackie Cooper worked at the sheriff's office. Y'all bring your own experience into the jury box with you. You don't just have to leave your common sense at the door. You analyze this case through the lens of your own personal experience. Everybody's worked in an organization where there's that person who kind of knows where everything is and why things are done the way they are and can tell you what happened 15 years ago. Jackie Cooper's been the admin for 3 sheriffs. This was her 3rd one. And she's making $54,000 a year. And what'd she say when she took the stand, even after all the raises? Which may be the only good thing that's come out of this is I think Jackie Cooper got some more money because they felt like, oh my God, we got to do something. We can't pay this woman 62 and leave Jackie at 54. But even now, with 30 years experience in, Jackie is now making about what Savannah made when she walked in the door at 22 with no experience. She still doesn't have a car and no private parking space for Jackie. No perks. Not told anything about Charlotte. She was the right-hand woman for Sheriff Loftus, Sheriff Johnny Mac Brown, Sheriff Simmons. She was the person who helped those folks. She didn't know anything about Charlotte. That was kind of like kept under the radar. Every time I heard one of his witnesses talk about transparency, I had to bite my lip. I was like, are you kidding me? This guy isn't about transparency. We'll get to that in a minute with some of the tapes, but transparency. What else did Jackie tell us? This was the first time we heard about the Tennessee Beauty Queen. And y'all were thinking, what in the world is that about? There was some woman he was talking about he wanted to hire. He didn't have a resume for her. He just had some pictures. Next we have Master Deputy Laura Jones. 15 years of experience in law enforcement. A polygraph operator. Has to go to school for weeks, work under a mentor at SLED, and do many, many hundreds of polygraphs, being supervised to make sure she knows how to do them right. Bomb squad. To The day she testified, she's making $10,000 less than Savannah Neighbors was making when she walked in the door. Again, I'm just giving y'all some context. Giving y'all some okay, that makes $62,000 make a little more now. All of a sudden, you start to wonder to yourself, $62,000. Here's Lewis come in at the beginning and tell the SWAT bomb squad team, mostly males, Laura was one of the only women in the room. What does she tell them? What does Lewis tell all these guys? She's off limits. All right, guys, look at her. Yeah, she's cute. No touching. You can look, but you can't touch. She's mine. She says that after the story broke about the command staff meeting, he says, actually in Bill Clinton style, again, hearing him say, I'm a different man since all this happened. I'm a changed man. This has been very, very enlightening for me. But before he had to admit it, because the tapes came out, what does he tell in the crowd at the Greenville County Sheriff's Office? I did not have sex with that woman. Like it's a joke. They didn't even get the benefit of hearing from him himself. He didn't come in and tell the officers who are rolling out to calls in Greenville, responding to people calling saying, my house has been broken into, I woke up, my car window's been broken, my stuff's stolen, all this stuff. These deputies roll out and talk to people. He didn't give them the courtesy of saying, I'm about to go on TV in Greenville and admit that this allegation about sexual conduct is true, that I did have sex with her. I'm about to do that, so you guys just a heads up, because their reputations and their honor as they roll around the streets of Greenville every day is directly tied to this man. Because why? Leadership. He's the guy running the agency. The integrity of the agency runs through him. And if he has no integrity, if he has squandered his own morality and credibility, then it diminishes theirs. And the morale of Greenville County Sheriff's Office went in the toilet. Chief Deputy Marcus Davenport, again, 25, 27 years in law enforcement. What does he say? This guy comes in and lies about this Savannah Neighbors was my babysitter. She's known our family forever. Good friends with my wife. Why would he have to say that in the first place? Why would he do that? Because it's as obvious to him as it is to everybody else. When he walks in the door with her 2 feet behind and 2 feet to the right, that's just weird. What is she doing everywhere he goes at 2 o'clock in the morning when he's rolling up to crime scenes? He knows that doesn't look right. He knows that that's funky. So what does he have to do? He has to manufacture this story about, oh, she's been friends with us since she was just a little girl. This is just me taking on a family friend and giving her a position and a leg up in the world. I'm a stand-up guy. Look at me. I'm helping this young girl out. Says they had an unusually familiar relationship. You know, a police department is somewhat like the military. It runs on discipline. You have a hierarchy and a structure. You have the sheriff, the chief deputy, majors, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, master deputies, and deputies. There has to be a hierarchy, because if there's a crisis, there needs to be discipline and order, and people need to know who's in charge and what's going on and who to respond to when there's a problem. Most people, even Jackie Cooper with her 27 years, calls Sheriff Johnny Mac Brown sheriff. She called Sheriff Steve Loftus sheriff. She called Sheriff Will Lewis sheriff, and everybody else did, but not Savannah. Will. They had this friendly, familiar relationship that was out of place in a sheriff's department and struck him as unusual. He confirms that they arranged school, he arranges the BMW school, and that Savannah shows up unexpectedly. They have 4 tickets, and now they got a 5th person. And who does Savannah end up riding with? Why, Will Lewis. Isn't this cool, Savannah? Look at all this exciting stuff we get to do. Being in law enforcement's great. Next week, we're going to go shoot with the SWAT team. They got a 50 caliber rifle. Wait till you see how big this gun is. It's great. They got machine guns. They got all kinds of cool stuff. The receipts from the hotel, he confirms that those were the actual receipts that were submitted to the county, which you can inspect when you're back there, see for yourself. Each room is listed, individual receipts, the Red Eye Diner. And the good thing about all these receipts is they tell you the date, the amount spent, and the time. So when people couldn't remember how much time was spent on these meetings, because we're going to talk about that in a minute, whether the meetings were even necessary, whether it was needed in Charlotte. But they've got all that information on there. And at the back, interestingly enough, the last one, this is the receipt from their first night when they got there. They went down to the cocktail bar where they had a little food and some drinks, and all this went on the room. $139.10. 1 specialty cocktail, 1 Svedka, 1 special cocktail, chicken and nachos, chips and dip, Bacardi, Michelob Ultra, Bullet Bourbon, specialty cocktail. Grand total of $139.10 when you round in the tip. Good thing he's so concerned about saving a buck that he's got to bring his own bottle. That was paid for by the people of Greenville. We picked up the bar tab as well that night. Chief Staff Report also says Savannah was late to the meeting, confirms that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Said, and he said that Lewis said she wasn't feeling well, which is at odds with what the defendant himself said, because he said, I didn't talk to her. I don't know where she was. She just didn't show up. I called her when we went to get coffee, but I don't know where she was. Said that she looked disheveled when she did show up and they met her on the street. Said that Lewis left them to go to a store after he went to dinner on the second night. That was when he went to the CVS. That he confirms that Lewis is, in fact, talking about getting Savannah Neighbors a raise, as several people have said, which has to make you go, well, she's been hired at $62,000 coming out the gate, and she's been there for 2 or 3 months, and he's talking about getting her a raise already? Drew Pinquero says later, yeah, he was talking about $72,000, a $10,000 raise. And Drew, remember, he said, I'd do it for $72,000. But Drew hadn't seen the job description yet, to his credit. So, and he also confirms that in the hiring of the replacement for Savannah, that the defendant also shows up with pictures of the girl he would like to hire, the Tennessee Beauty Queen, again. Linda Cobb, budget director for 34 years, attended every budget meeting for the sheriff's office in 34 years. Nobody knows more about the budget than Linda Cobb. She's been there since, 34 years ago would have been Reagan was in office. And she's been to every single one. Why she wasn't at the Charlotte budget meeting, if that's what this is really about, really has to make you question what was the real reason that they went to Charlotte. Why did they really go there? Was it for a budget meeting? She confirms that the credit cards used to pay for the liquor tab, the rooms, and the food were Greenville County Sheriff credit cards, and that the credit card bills themselves are paid for out of the Greenville County Sheriff's budget, which is all public money. Never had a budget meeting out of the county before. Never mind the state. They left the state of South Carolina, but they never even left Greenville before to have a budget meeting with the sheriff's office. Drew Pinquero said he's a PIO, public information officer, handles the media. Savannah Neighbors never did anything for the media. contrary to what the defendant said, that she tells him where to set up and that she's out there in front and working the media and that she's all involved with that. Savannah herself said she wandered around behind Will, supposed to take notes. Let me tell you, that's what the police officers investigating the crime are supposed to do. They're the ones that do the investigative reports. The reports are the notes. They document what happened in their investigative reports. Savannah Neighbors is not supposed to be doing that. Lewis told her, and this is a trend that's going to repeat itself, best not to talk to her. What did he take that to mean? I'm not talking to her. If the sheriff says probably not a good idea to do something, that means don't do it. And he knows that. They all work at the pleasure of the sheriff. Enormous amount of power wrapped up in one guy with his $45 million of people's money in his budget. Tremendous amount of power. Over drinks after Savannah left, this guy says to his attorney, his staff attorney, "What has she got on me?" Like, he's already thinking. He knows that something's wrong, that he's done something wrong, and he's just trying to figure out how good of a case does she have. And then this, which I think pulls the mask back of the guy who sat here. Let me tell you all the good stuff I did. I'm a changer. I get in there and fix things. I'm a mover and a shaker. What does he say the defendant said about Savannah Neighbors after she left? Or if she was in the process of leaving? Yesterday, I could have fucked her in the parking lot in my Tahoe, but today I don't know where that bitch's head is at. That's Will Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. Right there. That's who he is. You've probably all met somebody just like him in your life. Somebody arrogant, like John Hansley said, condescending. He's the smartest, strongest, fastest, brightest, funniest guy in the room, no matter what room he's in. And Drew, with his 12 years of experience, Special Weapons and Tactics team, public information officer, training, he's been shot at